must be pretty exciting at Marvel at the moment. Everybody's looking at Marvel, the Avengers out. How has that kind of filtered through to you guys?
You know, it's a little movie we did this year. It wasn't, you know, we weren't expecting a lot from it. It's been overwhelming. It really has been overwhelming. We knew the movie was going to be wonderful. You know, we've been working on this for quite a while. We just didn't expect the outpouring of love that the movie got from fans. I mean, just personally speaking, I was receiving emails from fans that were, there were at least 3 of them. 3 emails where fans had said, we received a lot, but 3 emails in particular that talked about the fact that they were weeping after the movie came out and they saw the movie because they were longtime fans in their 40s and 50s and they had been waiting for this since childhood. And the fact that we didn't screw it up made it really that much more of an added bonus. So I just think there's a lot of emotion behind Avengers from hardcore comic fans. There's a lot of love from hardcore comic fans, and then the general public, once they got exposed to it, the reaction has been more than anything we expected. You know, to be what it is right now is truly overwhelming.
Did you have a favorite bit? Favorite part of the film?
You know, I could go to the obvious stuff. You know, this. Has anybody not seen it? Okay. You see what I mean, right?
About the safest crowd you'll ever have.
Right. But to me, aside of the obvious, very, very funny gags, my favorite moment in the film is the introduction of Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. And when she kicks major ass, when she's done, and she doesn't leave without picking up her shoes, right? That to me was such a wonderful bit of business because you know what? Fuck this, those are expensive shoes. I'm taking those things back with me. It just said so much about her character, and it was just a wonderful little bit of business.
The Hulk was fantastic in the film. Mark Ruffalo did a fantastic job. I know he's signed on for a load more movies. Do you think we'll see a Hulk film in its own right?
You know, pardon me, even if I knew, I wouldn't be able to tell you. It doesn't mean I don't know, but you know, it's the kind of thing. When we talk about things in the movie slate, we're very, very conservative and very careful about this stuff at Marvel. I mean, stuff tends to leak on its own. They certainly don't need my help.
Well, that's blown my next question, because I was going to ask you about kind of the sequels for the other characters that come out, Thor 2, Iron Man 3.
Yes.
Is there anything you can tell us?
They are happening. There will be some more sequels to those movies. You know, we're working on Iron Man 3 right now, and I can tell you, you know, the script is wonderful. It's very unexpected. There are going to be things in that movie that people will not see coming, and it's really, really proud of the way that's taking shape.
I was interested in knowing, is there any character that you'd like to see up on the big screen that hasn't yet, or there's no plans to yet?
You know, there are lots of characters that I'd love to see on screen. I mean, you know, I was just talking to somebody about this before, where you know there are a lot of niche characters that Marvel has that I think would be wonderful on the big screen. But as a company, that's not what we are right now. As a company, we're not in the market of making small budget movies. That's not to say we won't be a year from now or 10 years from now. But right now, we're interested in building tentpoles and looking at movies like Avengers, like Iron Man. And again, that doesn't also mean that we're not going to look at other aspects of the Marvel Universe. But just as something that is totally off the radar, and I've said this before about this one particular character, one of the movies that I would love to see someday would be a Killraven movie. Killraven is one of my all-time favorites, and I think it could be really cinematic in scope and a very cool action movie. But you know, who knows if we'd ever do it.
Has there been? There must have been quite a big pickup from people going to see the film, getting into the comics for the first time. Have you felt much of that? Has there been much of an upswing in sales? Or?
You know, I without speaking to numbers in particular, you know, usually you feel some kind of a bump from movies like this when they come out. What we've experienced from the Avengers movie is unprecedented by Marvel standards. Yes, we are seeing growth in so many different areas because of the Avengers. That again, it was very unexpected, very welcomed, but really nothing in the way that we expected it to happen.
I wanted to ask you a bit about your job and what you do day to day, because
this is it.
Yeah.
I sit around, lounge around. Yeah, this is not much different than home, you know.
Because you're Chief Creative Officer at Marvel, right?
Yes.
Because that sort of sounds like you just sit in a nice office thinking of stuff.
You know, I don't sit in the office that often, but yeah, I mean I often say that I have the greatest job in the world, because I used to spend countless hours in school getting yelled at by teachers because I would just sit in my desk and I'd either just be looking out the windows or doodling on a napkin, and they would just constantly be berating me because I was not paying attention in class. And again, I was just making up stuff in my head. And now I get paid to do that. So yeah, I mean, I do a lot of that. A good portion of my day revolves around reading scripts, whether it's for animation, television, movies, comic books. A portion of my day is involved in drawing. A portion of my day is involved in conference calls, organizing creative activities and things. So, but it's a full immersion creative job, And I'll be lying to you if I didn't say that there were some days or something. Usually it's like once every 2 or 3 months, I'll come home and I'll tell my wife, I'm done. I don't have any stories left of me. I need a day off. I'm just done. But yeah, I mean that's really what my job entails. There's so much stuff that goes on at Marvel, and it's fun because sometimes I'll see something on a screen, one of our movies, and I go, oh, that little bit, that's mine. That little bit, that's mine. But Marvel's a very collaborative place, so that's also why I think I have a great job because I get to work with all these great collaborators.
Interesting, you mentioned scripts there. I mean, specifically in terms of comics, what do you think makes the sort of quintessential Marvel script, like the perfect Marvel script?
It's an easy formula when you look at it. The only way I could describe it is that let's use Spider-Man as an example, right? Every great Spider-Man story is really a Peter Parker story in disguise. We call it Spider-Man because it sells better than Peter Parker does. But really, that's always the key for us. It's always about the character, the alter ego first, and then the superheroics second. So to me, every great Marvel story, every great character story starts with the character. If we do that right, then we're going to be successful. If we just start with, costumes and explosions and there's nothing underneath all that, then generally we fail.
What are you excited about at the moment? What titles are really pushing your buttons at the moment?
We have a lot of things that are happening. I mean, right now we're in the middle of Avengers versus X-Men, which is an incredible story. It's very, very exciting. My role is always to look ahead, to look at what's coming up. So we have some great stuff coming up after that. We haven't announced it yet, but I think also technology is the thing that has to be the most jazz. I've been really knee deep in working on something called the Marvel Infinite Comics, which are a digital only initiative that really applies a very simple digital storytelling technique that keeps the purity of what a comic is, while at the same time allowing us to use all the bells and whistles that the digital platform allows us to. So it's a perfect way to read a comic on a tablet in particular, on the phone of course, but it's always small on a phone, but on a tablet in particular. And I really do think that the infinite comic style of storytelling is where, if comics remain pure and remain classic comic books, I do think that this is how they will be told. I do think this is how they'll be constructed. And it really, it's a wonderful delivery system, and it allows creators a lot more flexibility. It's a little more work because you have to be a really good storyteller to do it. But if you haven't experienced it, you can download it for free, and or for 99 cents if you don't have the code. But that's one of the things that I'm truly, truly excited about, because I can see us 5 years from now producing a good number of our comics in that manner.
I was going to, obviously, the comics fans are quite vocal and very active online. I mean, do you keep an eye on sort of online discussions and forums and stuff? Does fan feedback sort of influence decisions at Marvel at all?
Some of it does, but really to me, what's important about the fan feedback is the feedback in general. For us, it's about the passion of fans, because you can't base your publishing plan, you can't base your creative plan on fan feedback, because if I just go down a chart of, let's say during my 10-year tenure as editor-in-chief, if I go down the chart of the most vehemently hated ideas by fandom online, starting from 1 to whatever it may be, they will most likely correlate exactly with the best-selling initiatives that we've ever done. And that's strictly because, from the point of view of fandom, change is scary, change is hard, change is, why do you have to alter my favorite character? Why do you have to alter my favorite universe? But at the end of the day, that's really a trope of classic storytelling, right? If you're writing a story, if nothing changes in your character's life from the beginning of the story to the third act, then that's not really a story. You've written a flat character, you've written a flat story arc. There has to be change, there has to be motion, but that always garners the most passion from fans. So to me, I only get worried if we ever announce something and nobody talks about it. If they don't talk about it, I know we're in big, big, big trouble, because that just means nobody cares. It's a boring idea, or it's an idea that has no consequence whatsoever. So that's really kind of the way that I gauge fan feedback. Not to say that some fans aren't right, you know, when they have a critique, because let's face it, it's, you know, it's everyone has an opinion, right? And it's all a matter of the kind of stories that you like. So you may not like something that I loved, and at the end of the day, that's what makes it a good ball game, you know. But at the end of the day, we cannot base everything on fan feedback. It would be suicidal.
Yeah.
You know, at least I'm sorry, online fan feedback. The fan feedback that's very important to us is what happens in the stores. It's very democratic. Fans vote with their dollars or they vote with their feet. If they're voting with their feet, we know we're doing something wrong. Ironically enough, the most vocal positive feedback we have on stuff are usually for books that are not very successful.
Really? Why is that, do you think?
Because what happens is you'll have a smaller selling book that has a ravenous fan base, and the minute they start to hear that it's about to be canceled, they're writing in, save this book, save this book. But, you know, again, I could go through a list of books that are beloved. If you were to read the internet, you would think that they are our best-selling titles, and ironically enough, they end up being our lowest-selling titles. It's just the essence of the internet. It's just the way it works.
So yeah, basically, I mean, what does the future hold? What's the next sort of year, 18 months got in store? Can you give us a heads up on any sort of any future events, anything that's happening?
Again, a little too early to talk about events. You know, we said we're working on Iron Man 3. There's just so much stuff going on with Marvel. You know, we are a growing animation division. You know, we're producing shows now for DXD on Disney. And again, it's just it's funny to say that, you know, after all these years of being Marvel, that we are a small yet growing company, because we're now part of this larger conglomerate called Disney, and they give us so much muscle, and more importantly, internationally, they give us muscle. Whereas Marvel was a very recognizable brand in the United States, and yes, over here in the UK, but when you went worldwide, we were meaningless. Marvel meant nothing. And that's changing very, very quickly. And I think the Avengers was literally like a hammer to the head to the international community of like, oh, who's this company called Marvel? So we're making inroads into all countries, all around the world, and that in itself is just daunting and exciting and pretty cool, you know, to be reaching a larger audience.